On the 28th of February 2024, the South African Parliament passed the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill, which was first introduced to the Justice Portfolio Committee in Parliament in 2020, in September. So we've been waiting for 5 years for this bill to pass. And we've certainly gone through all of the motions of public participation, giving presentations to Parliament, and finally, this bill has passed through, and right now it is waiting for our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, to sign it. So we're not quite sure whether he's still looking for a pen or how long it will take him to find this pen, but we almost expect this bill to be signed into law before the elections, which are on the 29th of May, 2024. So what does this mean? Here at Fields of Green for All, we have kind of just left this bill now to be passed in its final stages, because there's only so much that we can fight for on the privacy side of things. And we've certainly over the last few years had an overdose of dealing with the government, because as you all know, they still think we smoke the leaves. So this video is for you, the cannabis community, all our beloved people who use, cultivate and trade in this plant in South Africa, in Africa and all around the world. There's been lots of hoo-ha in the media lately about what's happening in Germany, a bit about what's happening in Switzerland. Certainly, if you're following it, there's lots of hoo-ha going on in Spain. In America, they're talking about the descheduling, rescheduling of cannabis in a very complicated way, because we know that the Americans always do things in a complicated way. So let's not forget South Africa, down here on the southern part of the African continent, and what should have been huge, big, momentous news. Yesterday, I kept on having flashbacks back to the day when Uruguay legalized, and they were the first country in the world. Everybody was out in the streets with their faces painted green, and they were carrying banners, and everybody was celebrating and having a good time. Well, yesterday, I think the bill was just passed with a little bit of a whimper, and some really bad reporting and some really good reporting. So for those cheap and tacky tabloids that reported that now you're allowed to carry 600 grams, or you're allowed to grow 1 plant, you're allowed to grow 8 plants, no. What we would really recommend, if you're going to be reading the media, is to read at least 3 or 4 articles before you'll find the truth. Or follow Fields of Green for All on social media, watch this video, share this video, because right here, as I sit here with my beautiful team here at the Jazz Farm, I can assure you that this is the truth. Now, the one thing that has been bothering us for a very, very long time is this idea of plant counting and amounts. Now, let me just stress that there are no amounts for anything that are stipulated by the bill. Not the amount of plants you can grow, not the amount you're allowed to carry on your person, not the amount that you're allowed to carry in your car, not any amounts whatsoever. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these media reports have contained amounts because there was an incredibly confusing set of events that happened late last year. And there were various versions of this bill whizzing around the internet, and people got very confused. So you can take it from us that there are no amounts stipulated in this bill. Now, that has 2 implications. The first implication is that this would not necessarily correctly, but it does leave it up a bit to the discretion of the police. So now, as you know, here at Fields of Green for All, we are all about stopping the cops, because it's not over until it's over, ladies and gentlemen, until the police stop rocking up at my gate and at the gate of responsible adult cannabis users, cultivators and traders in South Africa. It's not over. So as far as the amount is concerned, don't let any police officer, don't let any two-bit tabloid, don't let any pot shop, don't let anybody tell you that there are specific amounts. But when it comes to the police please go to our website, go to our Stop the Cops Legal Help page, and download the August 2023 Police Directive. And in there, it will tell you that there are no mounts, and it tells the police that there are no mounts, but it also says that your home, whether you own it or whether you rent it, or whether it's a commune or you live on your own, or you live with your extended family, whether you're in the rural area or in the urban area, your home is your private space. Your car is your private space. Your bag is your private space. And this sets it out for the police very, very clearly. So we would like everybody to please know your rights. Go to our website, learn your rights, print out a copy of our Know Your Rights booklet so that you can keep it in your car and keep it in your bag. And just know that no policeman is allowed to search your private space without a warrant from a court. Now, the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill was passed. So now, what does this mean for warrants of arrest? Because the police we've seen over the last years and years and years have always said that if there is suspicion of drug dealing on the property, they don't need a warrant. That is not true, because the one thing that the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill does is it takes cannabis out of the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act. This is a huge victory for us here in South Africa. The Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill is the bill that will govern cannabis from when Uncle Cyril puts his signature on that piece of paper, and we'll just have to wait until such time as he finds a pen. So that is a very important point to make, because the passing of this bill has changed the definition of cannabis instantly. And here I'm quoting our dear head of our legal team, Paul Michael Keichel, and he was speaking to News 24 yesterday. And this is a very important point to make, because cannabis is no longer an undesirable dependence-producing substance, which it was under the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act. It also immediately allows for a industrial cannabis industry to start becoming a reality. We all know that hemp, or industrial cannabis, is not an industry that we have ever known in the southern parts of Africa, or certainly in sub-Saharan Africa. There is very little use of cannabis for industrial purposes beyond domestic and certain rural settings. So we know that there's lots of people in South Africa who are great proponents of the hemp industries, and we are behind them all the way, and we encourage them to please, please, please carry on with their efforts, particularly in far-flung rural areas. But we mustn't forget that here at Fields of Green for All, we've got 10 crisis points. And the crisis point that pertains to industrial cannabis has got 3 different sections. So before you go and start pollinating my lank dank with your cannabis that you're going to use to make socks, we would like you to please operate within an exclusion zone so that we don't have the idea of pollen drift. We would like you to look very carefully at where you are getting your seeds from, because we need to protect our genetic resources. Our genetic resources are very, very important to our indigenous knowledge, and we don't want Chinese hemp growing in South Africa. And just for everybody who didn't know, China is in the northern hemisphere and South Africa is in the southern hemisphere, and we have a different climate and we have a different environment. So please look very, very carefully into those companies who are developing South African industrial cannabis cultivars. The third thing that's really important to remember about hemp is that you get a thing called hot hemp. And right now, I think that in South Africa, I'm very confused because they keep changing their minds. I think that we've got the limit for industrial cannabis plants set at 0.2% THC. And we can certainly say that we're going to be using our traditional genetic resources and our additional landrace cultivars, that they will certainly come out with more than 0.2% THC. And that's no reason why we can't make socks out of them. So those 3 crisis points are important for our emerging hemp industry. So we have all of these areas that have not been sorted out by the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill. And we have to look very, very carefully at where we're positioning ourselves in the cannabis supply chain. Because I can't say this enough, apart from the fact that there's no amounts and no plant counting, that there is no trade allowed whatsoever. So we've been getting hundreds of questions over the last few days, and one of the questions is about our dear Dacha private clubs, the cannabis social clubs. Now I intend to make a whole nother video about the intricacies of this proposed regulation allowing for clubs. But right now, I just want to remind everybody that the Hayes Club case is set down to be heard in Bloemfontein on the 19th of March. Our lovely team of Joanne and Amy and Shane will be going to Bloemfontein to be present with our legal team, including Stefan from 420 Attorneys, Paul Michael from Cullen and Associates, Advocate Don Mahon or his junior. We're going to be gathering, hopefully, with some of our Bloemfontein and Free State community, joining us in the City of Roses on that day, as Fields of Green for All has intervened as amicus curiae, which means we are friends of the court, there to assist the court with the evidence and the facts. And a reminder about the Hayes Club case is that we all know that legal fees are off the wall. So I would like to humbly ask you to please support Fields of Green for All, so that we can support Neil and his partners in the Hayes Club, so that we can support every one of the hundreds and hundreds of Dacha private clubs that are sprouting up all the way around South Africa. Really, we are very proud of everybody, how they have committed civil disobedience. But remember that if you do have a club, keep it private, have access control, private. But it's not over till it's over, ladies and gentlemen. And I said that in the beginning. The Dacha private clubs, we are not certain whether they are legal yet. So let's operate as if we are still under full prohibition. And please follow us on social media, like, share and subscribe here on our YouTube channel, so that you can get the update in the next day or two about the Dacha private clubs. And I'm also going to be telling you about my upcoming trip to Vienna, where I'm going to go and fight for the rights of the worldwide cannabis community at the United Nations, with particular focus on cannabis and biopiracy, our genetic resources, our indigenous knowledge, and our history. So that is certainly a lot for myself and my Cannabis Embassy team to get on with in Vienna, but I promise to do you proud. So I'm going to sign off by reminding you to keep it private, keep it hidden, act as if it's still under prohibition, and don't let the cops through your gate.